In this video, we will take a look at hybrid cloud management for managed service providers using the Jamcracker service delivery network. Now, it is over a 30-minute video, so I've put together a slide here showing you the topics we'll be covering in case you want to jump to a specific section. With that, let's get started.
First, I want to bring you in as an admin at an end user's company. That's this portal screen here where I have a sign in. And then I'll also show a little bit about the back end and also on the self-service onboarding as well. But first, just signing in here. For this demo, I have it running in a standalone mode where I would just enter credentials and sign in. So whether you are looking to service SMBs or large enterprises, you're going to need to handle a few different sign-in methods, right? Maybe it's just credentials or credentials and two-factor auth. You need to be able to support those. But then also for larger enterprises, they may be using Active Directory, and it would really help them if they could leverage their existing user management and everything to help with the sign-in. Or perhaps even they're using something like federated identity, be it Active Directory Federation Services or some other product like Okta. And so, having a platform that can handle all of those really in the same platform is important because each of your clients are going to be different. They'll have different requirements. So you really want to have that breadth of support. Okay. So I've signed in here, and as an admin, I land on this dashboard where I see a quick view of any of my subscriptions for my company, as well as my subscriptions, my orders, and applications that I've purchased and that are in use. What I'd like to do is, now I should also point out, I am, like I said, an admin for this client, so I have all of the functionality at this portal enabled for me, but with role-based access control, you can limit what users can do. I'll go into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to point that out, that all the functionality you'll see in here throughout this demo is all something I have as an admin. And so here in the catalog, you'll see here items of different types. You'll see software as a service, like this Everware or Office 365. You'll see some application stacks. These are, virtual machines and or PaaS services that are assembled together and provided through a catalog item to provide a sort of best practice starting template for the type of application that you want. So it could be something like maybe a Tomcat server with some maybe security hardening or database setup that is important as a best practice. That could be designed in the Abstract Designer, which I'll show a little bit later, and then published out in the catalog as something like this. Same thing for MySQL or other items like that. We also have some other services. Maybe it's database as service. Maybe it's it could be really anything. It could be professional services. It could be classic managed services like monitoring and troubleshooting. Those could be offered on a subscription service. Whether it's paid, monthly per unit, like per server that you're monitoring. It could be a fixed fee item. It could also have an initial setup fee. You want to be able to handle all of those pricing models, right? So one-time fees, recurring fees, prorating. You want to handle tiered pricing, volume pricing. Maybe if I order 10 licenses of Everware, I want to get the discount. So, it could be a certain price if you buy one, but it could be less expensive per license if you buy multiple. So having functionality that supports all that is very important. Okay. So what I want to do first here with these catalog items, I'm going to go ahead and pick, maybe I'll pick this Tomcat chef stack and go ahead and show you how an end user would launch an application stack that's been published through the catalog. It's quite simple, actually. You go and find the catalog item, review whatever information has been published about it, and then click the launch button. That will bring you up into a palette here. We see on the left-hand side, I have a resource. It looks like a Linux machine with the letter C here that indicates that it's using Chef. But you could imagine having multiples of these, maybe in a three-tier web stack. You could have 3 of them. Could have another resource being something for, for that 3-tier web stack, instead of a database being, deployed on a virtual machine, you might be using the path of Amazon or something like that to go and offer that up. So it doesn't have to be just virtual machines, is my point, and there could be multiple resources in here. I'm going to go ahead and just give this a name, call it Demo Stack. Now, budgeting is something where, for enterprises, I think is more important and prevalent. In this case, I've set up some budgets here, so I can pick as a user which budget I want to apply this app stack against. Let's just say that I'm doing some dev test. I'll go ahead and pick this one. Gives you the amount available in the budget, and I'll go ahead and confirm it. So there's going to be plenty of money available. Right now, you see it's looking like it's about $45 based on some of the defaults that are in here, and that's how much this would cost if this machine was running for a whole month. So to come in here and click on this resource and then open up the different options available to the app stack. See one, we can give it an instance name. I'll just add that to give it a unique name. And I can pick here, it's giving me a choice to pick which vendors. Now here you see I have 3 options, OpenStack, AWS, and VMware. That reflects not just what different cloud providers this current platform is enabled, but what of those are actually made available to this application stack. It may be that if you're setting up, if the designer of the application stack wants to define an application with sensitive information, they would want to make sure that it's only run internally, maybe on a VMware or OpenStack internal environment, or private cloud. So on a per resource basis, you're going to be able to pick which vendor, and the selections here are defined by the application stack designer. I'll show you that designer after I launch this here, but I just want to point out, I also have soft layer. I also have Azure loaded in here, but they're not made available here, and that's the choice of the application stack designer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'll pick AWS for this one, I guess. And then for AWS, I'll pick the region. In this case, I'll use US East. And pick the other parameters here. In this case, I'll pick the OS version that I want, pick the size that I want. And as I pick the different sizes, you'll see the estimated cost changes, so that I'm getting that feedback, that real-time feedback as the user when I'm trying to spin this up to give me an idea of what this would cost on a monthly basis. Okay? And then you can pick instance type. Now, these options here aren't the only options that can be supported. I mean, really, with every deployment of our platform, we see clients who want to call things different names or expose more or less options here. So it's really just understand that with each resource, you can have a set of parameters that you can specify. And the application stack designer can limit some of those. And just the platform itself can be configured to only show certain sets of things or allow other sets of things. Like maybe, for instance, for signing in, I might want to have a username and password in here that I would want to use as a default, or I could just choose to use keys like I have here, so I don't have to worry about specifying a username. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. And what I've also set up in this portal is an approval process. Now, I've set up just a simple one for demo purposes, where I would have to come in and review all the requests. And you can imagine, I'm trying to do this as one user, but you can picture a regular user went and tried to run this app stack, but they need to get an approval. In that case, a typical workflow would be to have the administrator be sent an email by the system saying there's a new request for a product, please review it and approve or reject. They would then come in and click on a link in that email, come into the screen, review the item that has been requested, get some more details about the item, see the name, it's called Demo Stack, its resource, whatever its resources, etc. Go ahead and review that, and I can either approve it or I can reject it. I'll go ahead and approve it. And click confirm. Now, going through this, I had first specified a budget, and then I had gone and approved the request. Now, if my budget was running out, maybe I only, had, less than $50 left in my budget, you can have the system set up during both the ordering and the approval process to alert you if you're either coming close to the budget or if you're exceeding that budget. And you can have it alert you in a sort of a warning fashion, saying, hey, your budget is mostly used up. You could also have it enforce some other workflow that if it is used up, then there needs an extra level of approval. So having that flexibility to address the business needs, the governance needs of the clients, I think is very important. Okay. So this application stack I've gone and approved. If I come over and start looking at the application stacks that are and their statuses in the system, is they have a few running, a few terminated. There's one that got an error a while ago. You can see the different statuses here. You can see this one is initializing one I have now, and it's running through its status of creating the orchestration plan, security groups, the rules, creating the ports, then launching the instance, and now it's going to begin running the Chef cookbooks to actually get that Tomcat up and running for the user. Okay. So you see here in this one screen of all the application stacks, I get a view into those applications. Now, to get a more granular view, you can either drill down into one of these application stacks and look at the instances involved there. You can also come in through the Manage Images option and look at all the, I'm sorry, not Manage Images, Manage Instances. I want to look at the running instances. And then here we see, here's, I think, a really good view of the single pane of glass and the value you have there. So when I look at all the instances that I'm handling with this platform right now, I have Amazon, I have OpenStack, I have Azure, and other options, showing you, in one screen you can see, regardless of which cloud it's on, you're able to see all the different virtual machines that are running. I think that's an important value when you're looking at multi-cloud hybrid scenarios. You really need to have a single pane of glass to get a good view instead of having to bounce between different systems all the time to get an idea of what's running. Okay. Now, for managing those running instances, while every cloud provider is a little different, and private, virtualization providers are all a little bit different about what you can do and how you can do them, there are a common set that I think everybody supports, and you'd want to expose that to your users, right? You want to be able to give them the same experience, whether it's VMware, whether it's Azure. Instead of them having to be an expert and know where to click at all the platforms, they can learn just one sort of interface to access, most of the functions that they're going to need. Now, certainly there will be experts who are maybe an expert at Amazon or an expert at OpenStack who want to go and do additional things that are very specific to that cloud provider, and you want to, enable that as well. By role-based access control, based on your role, you can expose the ability to log into vendor consoles, such as this here. If I click on Amazon, I'm launched right into the Amazon console. And in here, I can see all the instances that are running, and then all the different services. So maybe I need to run, I want to run, I don't know, Route 53 for DNS, or anything. But they have so many services there. It's not like any cloud management platform is going to really want to duplicate how to do all of this and have yet another interface for people to learn. But giving your power users the ability to get in, still utilize those advanced functionalities of those clouds, I think is very important. And it's also important that when they're consuming those resources, maybe I'm spinning up a container service, you'd want to make sure that any of the consumption, any of the charges that they're occurring in these services, in these cloud service providers, are also going to be brought back and presented as part of the invoicing and billing of your platform. And one of the great things about the Jamcracker platform is we integrate with various usage and metering APIs and price books so that we can get the costs that you're incurring from those providers and bring them into your invoice so you can present that single consolidated bill to your clients. Okay. So I'm looking here at some of the functionality around instances, for example. This private OpenStack, it's a database for the Achilles project. You see I have some tags. These tags are going to be useful later when I talk about policies, but you can really add any metadata, one or more tags, metadata to each of these instances to help filter for your policies. I'll show you that a little bit later. But here you see I can get more details about this particular item. I can, things like IP address and other, detailed information about that instance. I can also launch a secure shell into, that platform and take a look at, what's my disk state and all that. And what you notice there is I just open an SSH right into that machine. I didn't have to download keys, convert them, load them into my PuTTY tool, and launch into it. You can still do that if you want to. If you really like to use PuTTY, you can. But having a nice, quick option to get in via SSH or via RDP for Windows, I think is important for any cloud management platform. Basic lifecycle management. With virtual machines, you're talking about stopping or terminating the instance, rebooting the instance. That basic lifecycle stuff I think is important to have. There might be various reasons. Maybe you're troubleshooting something, or you've done some patches, you want to reboot. You need to be able to do that through the GUI. Makes it very easy to do it instead of having to log into the machine and try to do certain things there. Then looking at volumes, maybe you'll have data files or test data or other binaries to do installations on a separate volume. So you could attach an existing volume like I've done to this machine. I have one volume attached. So you can then go and find volumes that are out there, attach them into the virtual machine, and then begin to use the data or the binaries that are in there. Or I just want to create a new one because I know this is going to be creating a large set of files. I'll go ahead and maybe create a new volume, attach that. You want to specify what type of volume it could be. Maybe it's going to be running on SSD or magnetic, so you can call it standard or high performance type, etc. If you want to provision IOPS, you can have an option in here for that if that was something that your infrastructure is supporting. Then you select your size, and you can go ahead and add new volumes there as well. So giving good volume management is part of it, and we're talking here about block storage at this point. Creating image, this is something that's important for maybe sales demos or for training or for even dev tests where you have a machine, you've configured it up the way you want it, it's part of your development process. It's now in a state where you can let the testers begin to test it, but you have different test teams and they each want to have their own instance of it. Instead of having to try to reproduce those steps and get it configured exactly right 5 or more than one time, you could just run it once and then create an image from it, and then the test teams can go and run those images and create their own instances from that. So having that ability to create images and then run instances from those images is something that's common across platforms and is very useful. Resizing is also important. One of the big benefits of cloud is that scalability, whether it's scaling up or scaling out. Scaling up being adding memory or CPU, scaling out meaning adding another server to the cluster. Those are important functionalities to have in here. In this case, I have just enabled the resize function, which allows me to scale up or down memory, CPU, that sort of thing. And managing instance credentials. While the default credentials are great to get started, you'll want to change those to comply with security policies and make sure that you have unique passwords, unique keys, etc. For the different servers. Okay. So that from the instances view, you can access those functions. You also have the ability to come into some of those IaaS functionalities and look at, okay, here are the images. Here are all the images that I've saved. Now let's go ahead, like I mentioned before, let's take this image and go ahead and create an instance from that. Okay, so that's an important ability, like I mentioned earlier. Then I want to take volume snapshots to help preserve some data. Maybe you've gotten a system into a state where, as part of my testing, I found this edge case and there's a bug, and so I want to take a snapshot of the volume that captures the data so people can debug that. That's one potential use of volume snapshots. Instance monitoring. Monitoring is obviously useful for the production environment to make sure that your systems are healthy. It's also something that can really support a policy-based framework where you want to make sure that if the machine is maybe running out of memory or running really high CPU utilization, you then run a policy to go and scale up or scale out that sort of server. I can show you that. I'll show you those policies and how that can be leveraged. But having an instance monitoring system that's built into the platform is something that we have here. It's based on Nagios, but you can also integrate with any sort of external monitoring provider, and then using APIs that we have for elasticity, still leverage that policy framework so that whatever monitoring system you use, whether it's the inbuilt one or your own or the customer's own, still be able to leverage policy functionality that is running based on monitoring of the instances. Then, importing IaaS resources is important. If you're signing up customers and they already have accounts, you want to be able to pull in any virtual machines they have in those systems and get them as a system under management in here. So that ability is important for onboarding. And then to support various sort of DevOps or continuous development, continuous integration, stack templates are very useful like that, where you can promote application stacks through the development process, from initial tests to regression testing or to production, etc. So being able to have an ability to support the different types of development environments, be it classic or DevOps scenarios, and be able to manage the ability to have those application stacks run through their lifecycle, the software development lifecycle, is also some important functionality. Okay. So let's see. I think for infrastructure as a service, I've covered the most important stuff. I'd like to take a quick step back and look at some of the other items in the catalog, such as software as a service. So if I wanted to go and purchase maybe software as a service, request it, I could click on the item and go and add to the cart, and the cart would then show. In this case, we use the shopping cart analogy for purchasing. So whether it's a software as a service or it's a managed service, professional service, you can have a shopping cart experience for the user. I'll go ahead and run through one here very quickly. I'll add it to cart. We see the shopping cart, and it'll look just like any shopping cart you're used to seeing, where you can adjust your quantity, you can remove the items, continue shopping, and see the pricing, etc. I'm not going to go ahead and buy this, but I just want to show you that being able to purchase or request different types of services, be they software as a service, professional services, etc. It's important to offer that. Multi-cloud is not just private and public cloud, but it's also other types of cloud services and supporting services around that, like managed services. Okay. I think I'd like to show you that application stack designer now. And what I've done is I've switched over to what I call more of the back end. Here's where the MSP would come in and be able to manage everything. Whether it's coming in and looking at different stores, like different portals that you're enabling in this platform. Going back to multi-cloud, really multi-tenancy as an MSP is important. You don't want to have to create an instance of the whole platform every time you want to bring up another client. Here you can see in this platform I have about a dozen different stores available. Looking at maybe this AD enterprise test to give you an idea of some of the store setups you have, right? You can create different brandings and logos, etc. But then identity management will be important. So for this system, we say yes, we want to have identity management. Use directory sync. This means really Active Directory or other directory services that are LDAP based. We can also have this SAML base, where this fit more into, like I mentioned earlier, a federated services via ADFS or Okta, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of options to set up a store, a lot of functionality you can get, but just showing you this back end. And how that multi-tenancy really appears in the back end. We call them stores, but they're portals or stores. You could have a reseller store. Maybe you're selling to SMB and you have a reseller store, and you don't have any sort of pre-approved credit with those clients. They're signing up and maybe requesting to buy some software or some services from you. They'll maybe use credit cards. So there's a bunch of functionality around different payment types, taxation, etc., that you can actually have customized per store and we're fully globalized, so whether you're talking US dollars or English and French, languages, currencies, time zones, date formats, all that globalization I think is important as well for any provider that's looking to do business outside of one country. Now coming into that application stack designer that I had mentioned, the IaaS console is where you do that. Now, first, you need to enable the cloud platforms, and so you would basically onboard them using this IaaS account settings where you can go and specify for each cloud what are the credentials to use to get them onboarded. And then you would then go to begin creating stack templates. I already have a bunch created. I'll go ahead and create a new one from scratch here just to give you an idea of what that's about. So you're going to see the screen again, familiar to what I had before, where there's a palette and options on the right. But you'll see now on the left there are some panes that are what we call resources and their categories. And so here we see basic operating systems as one of the categories. Then there's applications. So let's say I want to design a 3-tier web stack. Maybe I'll drag out an Apache into the palette, drag out a JBoss, and I'll come over to the database category and maybe pick Oracle. Any of the databases that I have onboarded, any of these resources that are onboarded. So here you see I have 3 different, in this case these are all virtual machines, but you could have a database here. It could be like Amazon RDS, drag that out here as well. It doesn't have to be just virtual machines. It could be past resources. And for each of these resources, you have some different parameters that you can control. The exact parameters and the resource properties that you want here is configurable when we're setting up the system, but in this case what we've enabled here is the ability to select which cloud to run this resource on. In this case, maybe I'm setting up a sensitive application that, while I can expose the web server to the outside land, I want to have maybe the data only stored in a private network. So here, for the Apache server, I'll let it run in any cloud, but for Oracle, maybe I only want to allow it to run in my AWS VPC or in my VMware. So on a per resource basis, you can pick which clouds you're going to allow the end users who are going to spin this up out of the catalog. They get to pick from the choices that you give them as the application stack designer. Okay. Another item is important, especially when you talk with multi-cloud, making sure that you can have connectivity between the machines is important. So maybe in this one, I'll call it web to the app. Because it's TCP, maybe I need port 500 through 510. Now, my particular application needs to have those ports enabled so that if there are different clouds, it can make sure that the firewall rules, etc., whatever is in between is going to be configured properly for that. And so here you see some of the basic concept of defining an application. We have the different resources, we have the connectivity between them, and then we get into further customization. Maybe it's something I have some chef cookbooks. Here's going into my best practices and the way to differentiate myself. I can offer some cookbooks up that are going to install on top of Apache. I'm going to maybe run some cookbooks to do something with security hardening. Maybe it's something for other, some other setup or monitoring or some other functionality of Apache that is the best practice. And here's where you can really differentiate yourself. You just go and specify the different parameters that you need to access the cookbooks, including the endpoints and the key files. And then you come down and pick the cookbooks that are available for you to run on that. Okay, so you can do that for each of the resources. And you can actually specify the order that things are going to run as well. Maybe you know that the database has to come up first, then the app server, then the web server. So you can come in and look at the launch sequence and adjust that accordingly. Okay, so this gives you the tools needed to define your own custom app on multiple clouds and using best practices, whether it's using chef cookbooks or shell scripts, that sort of thing. Any of the CMDBs really can be supported, giving you the ability to define those application stacks that are sort of the secret sauce and the differentiation for you. Okay. Let's take a look now. Let's go back. It's probably a good point. I talked about onboarding the infrastructure as a service, and really with the Jamcracker platform, we have the infrastructure as a service cloud providers sort of deployed with the platform, and then you just specify the account settings to get them loaded. But let's say you have your own service that you want to offer up. Maybe it's just a professional service offering. Maybe you have your own software as a service functionality as well. Maybe you have a special portal for users. You want to be able to onboard those quickly, and sometimes it'll be something where you don't need full automation. You just need to make sure that when somebody orders something in the catalog, that an email is sent out to somebody so that things can get provisioned, or contacts can be made to handle managed services. We can also have a fully automated adapter, which will allow you to go and actually provision a service. So if you're talking about a software as a service, you'll need to be able to handle those events for creating the company or the organization, their context within the multi-tenant SaaS platform, and then also how to handle the users. But first, we go through and look at the catalog listing aspects of that. You want to be able to enter your name, description, logos, etc., subscription plans. What category it could fit into. Maybe have different categories that this product could be a part of. Then you go into things that are affecting the order flow. Some products, it only makes sense to order one of them for each customer. Sometimes you want to allow them to order as many as they want. So you need control over that. You want to specify the license agreement that's going to govern the usage. And then if you need to collect additional information from the user, for instance, if you're offering a mail service, you probably want to know what domain they want to use for the mail server, that sort of thing. So being able to build additional information forms to collect parameters for the service that are important when it gets to service provisioning. Now, for a software as a service, provisioning generally comes down to a few events, like I had mentioned earlier, creating, updating, and deleting the organization. Same thing for users within that organization, or single sign-on, right? If you want to be able to give users an ability from within the portal to be able to single sign-on into those services, so they don't have to remember their passwords for every single service they have, we give you the ability to do that as well. And so just look at the single sign-on here. If I was configuring a service for that, just to give an idea of how that manifests itself in our platform, if I go back to the catalog here, and I look at the subscriptions that are available to me as a user, and back in the portal, I have a couple of options. I have Everywhere and I have Salesforce. Here's where I can single sign on. I click the launch button, and it's just going to sign me right into my Salesforce instance as an example. And this can be set up when you're dealing with an external identity provider like ADFS or that sort of thing, so that if a user just bookmarks their Salesforce page, whenever they try to come into it, if Salesforce's security mechanism said their cookies expired and they need to go and get a new session, they need to get re-authenticated and validated, we can operate it in a chaining mode where that request actually comes through the Jamcracker platform, so that we actually get visibility into when users are logging in to provide both the clients and you as a managed service provider visibility into how much these services are actually being used. And then if we could actually pass it on to the actual identity provider, verify that their credentials are valid with Okta or ADFS. And so just giving you an idea of the different ways that SSO can be utilized, whether it's signing into our platform or signing into the services within our platform, there's a lot of flexibility there. I'm running a little bit short on time. I just want to talk quickly about policies. And when we're looking at infrastructure as a service, there are various policies in particular that could be very interesting in a hybrid cloud environment. Maybe you want to set up a policy to turn off machines on the weekend to save money. Now, you don't want to turn off production machines, obviously. You want those running 24/7. But there could be some dev, excuse me, some dev systems that you want to be able to turn them off on the weekends. And so you just give a policy a name, a demo policy, I'll call it, a description, type something there, and then we'll say, okay, let's define a policy for an instance. And so, as I mentioned a little earlier, when we're looking at the instances, you can have the different attribute value pairs. Here's where those are going to be very useful. Like I say, okay, I want any machines where lifecycle, is dev, but I want to have those dev machines turned off on the weekend. And so I'm going to only select those instances that have this attribute value pair. And then let's figure out what type of policy or what we want to use for the policy. So using a calendar policy, we can then say, yes, on Fridays, let's say weekly at maybe 6 p.m. Oops. On Fridays, we will then want to go and stop the server. You might also want to go and send an email notification. So here's an example of policy management, which is going to give your clients an ability to save costs. They only have machines running when they need them to. Could also be something where you take snapshots on a periodic basis to help with backup and restore sort of scenario. And so having policy functionality, I think, is also important, and having a common policy that applies regardless of the cloud provider is important across a cloud management platform.
Thank you for watching this video where we discussed how managed service providers can take advantage of the Jamcracker Service Delivery Network to enable the delivery, management, and billing of cloud services. Whether you're looking to offer managed services to help your clients manage and govern their move towards hybrid infrastructure as a service, manage their software as a service subscriptions, provide other products as a service, or even your own value-added offerings and professional services, the Jamcracker Service Delivery Network provides robust functionality for the access management, operations management, cost management, and governance required for successful managed services engagements. For more information, please contact us at information@jamcracker.com. Thanks again for watching.